Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tech Informist, where we will inform you, our listeners, about the technological industry. Inform you on apps you should download on your favorite gadgets, of course. My name is JJ Hammond. We have a great show for you. Are you ready to be informed? Of course you are. Up first, our guest for the show. He currently writes about technology for Geek.com and is contributor over at AndroidCentral.com. Big fans, by the way. Not only does he write about tech devices and is the author of Taking Your Android Tablet to the Max in 2014, he also launched a successful Kickstarter campaign for his sci-fi book named The Space Monster Anti-Survival Guide. That's awesome. Husband and father of three, the fantastic Russell Holly. Hello, sir, and thank you for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We like I said before, we were super stoked about having you on. However, this show is not complete without my good friend, founder, editor-in-chief of STLTechTalk.com, producer of Codecast, co-creator of STLTechChic.com, and this show, the Tech Informist, the uncanny Kevin Harvell. Hello, Kevin, and how are you doing, sir?
Doing wonderful. How are you guys doing? Russell, thank you so much for joining us, taking time away from being in Texas at the Big Android Barbecue.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this. This seemed like a lot of fun.
Yeah. And don't forget, everybody, you can visit techinformist.com to check out all of our past shows. Also, don't forget to check out STL Tech Talk and Codecast by STL Tech Talk. Both of those are podcasts in all of the podcast directories. And don't forget, you can interact with the show by sending us feedback to contact@thetechinformist.com. Also, we'd like to thank special thank you for Daniel Rubino, the guest of our last show. And I would also like to thank the sponsors of the show, Unidev. If you dream it, they can build it. Custom software, end-to-end development, beautiful web design, creative marketing solutions, and much more. In business for the last 25 years with 200-plus customers, 24/7 support, you will not be let down or left out on the creation of your dreams. If you want software development, content management systems, mobile development, website design, e-commerce solutions, digital marketing, and hosting, go to our website, click on their banner, or go to unidev.com and get the high-quality service you deserve today. So now, everybody, let's get to the reason why we are here, and that is to talk with Russell. Let's go to our first question, which is, what got you interested in covering technology and just into technology in general?
I have, I guess I've always kind of been a tech head. I had a family who was very supportive of, all new kinds of technology. I had my first computer when I was 9. I started taking it apart and figuring things out on my own. Just kind of learning as I went along, and that's just kind of how I've always been. I've always been fascinated by new things and new applications of existing technology, and that just kind of carried me forward.
Awesome. So that you just got into it. Now you were just hooked.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing that I knew it was something that I was good at. I kind of became the family tech nerd, I guess, the guy who fixed everyone's stuff, and just kind of kept learning. Any opportunity that I had to learn about some new thing when it came to technology, I was always fascinated by.
It makes you resourceful, doesn't it? I mean, it's all get out. I mean, you gotta solve some serious problems.
There are occasionally times where where I joke that I am kind of the master of nothing, but I kind of know little bits of everything.
Right. It
really has turned out to be more helpful than not. When I have it's not so much that I have all the right answers. I just know which direction to look.
Right. Google is our friend. The search engines do us well most of the time. So, Kevin, you're up with the next question, sir.
So, Russell, tell us a little bit about how you became a tech journalist. What led you down that direction?
This is actually kind of a weird story. I was a project manager, server administrator, and then I moved to being a trainer for Comcast. I was working for Comcast for a while. I was helping educate new techs as they came in, and doing just a lot of things for the folks over at Comcast, including just kind of basic technical support. And then I had a really terrible accident that destroyed most of the functionality in my right hand. And as such, I wasn't able to go to the office on a daily basis. Typing was basically impossible, and for a couple of months, while I was in the middle of a couple of surgeries and doing some things like that, I was really just kind of sitting in my bed or on my couch, just completely bored out of my mind. And the only thing that I really had to do was read, and so I just read everything, and it led me to new technologies that were coming out. It led to just this incredibly rapid pace of Android development. This was when the Nexus 1 had just come out, and so Android development was this kind of new and really exciting thing that was going on. There were a lot of people who were trying new things, and the cool thing about Android development at the time was that if you had an idea, it was really simple to just kind of implement and build your own ROM and do that kind of thing. And I was just fascinated by how all that worked. And eventually, I reached a point where I had my own opinions about how certain things should work, and I just kind of started. I wasn't even able to write at the time. I had a microphone and some speech-to-text software, and was literally talking into my computer for 4 or 5 hours a day, just kind of taking notes with my voice, and then kind of copying and pasting the stuff that made sense onto social networks, and eventually a couple of tech blogs reached out to me and said that they really liked what I was writing, and then I got invited to an event in New York to see new technology as it was coming out, and that was where I met my current boss, who is the editor-in-chief of Geek.com. And that's just kind of how it happened. Eventually, my hand did heal, and I have mostly regained control of that hand. But it's been a long and weird journey to this point.
Right.
That's a really good story, dude. I'm telling you. I really enjoy it. Yeah. And the fact that a lot of people they become victim mentality, right? It just, you didn't become a victim of your circumstance. You leveraged it and you said, I'm going to do this. I mean, I don't know what aspirations you had, but I mean, I'm sure that you still wanted to do things even though you were hurt and injured.
Yeah, it was one of those things. I being bored is the worst thing in the world for me, and I don't know if that's just.
It's the worst thing in the world for me.
Being a little ADD or what exactly that is, but
I make no bones about that.
I can't just sit still and do nothing. And that was the worst thing about that injury, was that whether it was the painkillers that were immobilizing me or just the sheer pain of moving my arm, I often found that I just had no choice but to sit there. And so after I had read all of my books and done as much as I could sitting still, I had to find something to do. And it turned out that was what this was.
And I got to ask real fast, what books got you started into Android development? Is it like straight up Android for Dummies, or did you get in on the ground floor?
I stumbled into, it wasn't a book at all actually. I stumbled into the CyanogenMod IRC channel.
Oh wow! Okay.
And I was messing around. I had just gotten my Nexus 1. I think my wife got it for me because she felt bad for me because I had just heard it from her. And so it was a really expensive phone at the time. We kind of couldn't afford it, but she got it for me anyway. And I just wanted to do everything with this phone. I wanted to learn how to do every possible thing that you could to this phone, and that was how I learned about the CyanogenMod developer team. I walked into their IRC channel and met so many amazing people that I'm still very close friends with today, and had just soaked up as much knowledge from those people as possible. And that's kind of a large portion of how I've gotten to where I am today. Is I have this really terrible tendency of finding the smartest person in the world, the smartest person in the room, and just kind of leeching off of them.
Yeah, I do that too.
Nothing wrong with that, man. You always surround yourself with smart people. It'll just help bring you up.
Absolutely.
I just take a bite out of them. So Kevin, you're up with the next question.
So what is it about Android in particular that led you to making Android your primary ecosystem? I mean, instead of Apple or Microsoft, for example.
So when I was a server administrator, I was working for a web hosting company that we were a very small group, a very small team, and part of that was every weekend one of us had to kind of be on call, where if anything happened, we would have to get up and go to the office, which for me was a 40-minute drive. If anything went wrong, if a server, just simple stuff, just needed to be rebooted, it was a 40-minute drive, and it was a really big pain. And one of the things that fascinated me about Android at the time was the ability to have a Linux terminal in my pocket. So if I ever needed to remote into one of my servers, I could do so from wherever I was. I could handle entire support calls from my pocket, and that was just a fascinating and powerful thing that I couldn't quite do on the iPhone just yet.
Right.
When the first and second generations of the iPhone came out, it took a little while for that kind of functionality to get there. And so I was actually originally most interested in the OpenMoko handset, which not a lot of people remember. It was the first, and that was the big thing, was that it was an all-touch screen. It had a, open source everything and a Linux terminal, and that was just the most fascinating thing to me. But then, that kind of sputtered and never really came to be. But then T-Mobile announced the HTC G1, and that was perfect. It had an amazing keyboard. It had a Linux terminal. It was everything that I needed as a system administrator to access everything. And I just kind of grew from there to learning more and more about Android. And even like today, I'm still not 100% Android. Like my phone, I use a Moto X as my phone. But my favorite tablet right now is the iPad Mini. I mean, I kind of float in between the two ecosystems. Okay. I do use Windows occasionally, just not nearly as much.
Gotcha. So it's like a tool set, right? You use a tool for the different thing that you want to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It was exactly what I needed at the time. I've used iPhones in the past, and they just don't. We've reached a point now where it's ecosystem entanglement. If you're so used to iOS apps and the way that iOS functions, then using that hardware and software makes perfect sense, and it's gonna get even better with the stuff that came out with OS X Yosemite, and Google's doing the exact same thing with Chromebooks and with Android 5.0. It's all about this kind of user entanglement where you get kind of pulled into that ecosystem. And I think that it's going to make things really kind of difficult for users like me who are kind of floating in between the ecosystems right now.
Well, when we say difficult, we're just talking about monetary difficulties, because our expenditure. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing for ecosystems, right? Because I mean, it's that experience, because you get a kind of a nice user experience across that ecosystem, and I'm not for necessarily the entanglement and being trapped like literally a fly in a spider web, but I mean, guys like us and stuff that cover this sort of thing, it's a financial investment that we have to be. Oh man, we're not taking that trip, babe. We're buying a whole bunch of equipment. And because we got to learn how this stuff works. I mean, especially like you said, guys who got to remote in, people that got to build apps, people that are doing web apps or are doing, responsive, and they got to, be able to tie. There's just a whole bunch of a mess of stuff, and it does make it difficult monetarily for that. So, Kevin, you're up with your next question.
All right. So, Russell, we know you were unfortunately unable to attend in person this year's Big Android Barbecue, which is going on right now down in Texas. Tell us about how you're still able to give your speeches that you were planning on being able to do there in person.
Yeah, so Saturday I give a presentation at the Big Android Barbecue every year. I'm a huge fan of the stuff that Aaron Kasten has been doing down there, the creator of the event, and just the environment that gets created at that event is really something special, because it combines the kind of developer stuff and user enthusiast stuff into one event, and that is unique in my opinion. That happens there. But this year my presentation got delayed because I broke my leg. I broke my fibula on my right leg, and Aaron found a virtual telepresence robot that I can control from here. And actually, right before this show started, I was driving around the lobby of the Hearst Convention Center in Texas through a web interface, right on my browser. My arrow keys control where the robot goes. It's a pair of wheels on a gyroscope and a long pole with an iPad. at the top of it.
That's so awesome.
It's actually really cool because they took the back camera and added a mirror that kind of points straight down so that I can look straight down at where my feet would be, which makes it really useful for navigating kind of tight spaces. And aside from the hotel Wi-Fi and the convention center Wi-Fi not being super
awesome.
great,
yeah,
right.
That's always a challenge.
It's really been a lot of fun. I'm able to interact with a lot of people. And there's a guy there with these crazy big wheel racing bikes, and I actually raced him across the convention center before coming and doing this, just for fun. So it's cool, and that's a really fascinating kind of new technology that we've got, thanks to how fast most internet connections are now.
Right. I always think about the Surrogate movie with Bruce Willis. It wasn't an awesome movie, but I mean, it kind of spoke to that future where we're having robots out and doing stuff for us. And
absolutely.
Yeah, I've been loving seeing the photos. People saying, "Oh, I'm having breakfast with Russell Holly," and Derek Ross is standing there with you. It was like his arm around you, and you got like a scarf on. I'm like, that is just funny.
Yeah.
Yep, I started driving up to people and giving them hugs. It was definitely fun. I'm looking
so
forward
cool.
to that.
Oh man, that is so cool. It's almost like, I broke my leg, so why don't you roll out the robot for me?
I'm just gonna stay home.
Kevin, you're up.
All right, so recently, this week was big for Android
Huge.
and Google in general.
Yeah.
They finally took the covers off the Nexus 6, the AK Shamu, the 6-inch device, the Nexus 9, the new Nexus Player that magically was not getting any leaks or was like nothing leaked about that device. What are some of your thoughts about Nexus 6, especially in general, for being a 6-inch device?
I've only had a couple of minutes to mess with the Nexus 6 so far, and it's the only one of the 3 devices that got announced that I've been able to touch, and it's just huge. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the giant scale phones. The Galaxy Note 4 and the LG G3. They're a bit too big for my personal use, and I found it very interesting that the Nexus 6 is bigger than both of those phones.
Right.
Particularly the G3. What makes the G3 usable for a lot of people is that there's like no bezel to that phone. It's really just screen on the front of that phone. It's kind of fascinating how LG has been able to engineer that. And it's very similar design with the Nexus 6, but it's just so much bigger that the G3 actually felt tiny in my hand in comparison.
Which is crazy,
to the Nexus
right?
6. It is. It's absolutely crazy. I really don't understand who is so fascinated with these larger phones. I think it's only like 5% of the market right now that really likes these giant phones. But obviously Google felt like there was a need, so I'd be very interested to see what its adoption rate is.
Do you think, now real quick, do you think that the reason, and I was sitting there and I was at a Google partner conference the other day, and I was thinking about this, is why the bigger phones? Why the bigger phones? And my thought is because it is a bigger phone, you're able to capture more of the internet on that device, and it'd be your singular device. So instead of having an iPad, instead of having a tablet, instead of having a phone, and all this other kind of stuff, if you're just going to buy the one device, there's a lot that Google can and designers can push down to that in the way of ads, right? Because Google makes their money off of ads. So if you're able to still enjoy a whole bunch of content with ads there, or enjoy the content and the mobile experience on this device, especially with the battery that they're able to slam in there because it's such a large phone. That was my thought. It was make it bigger so it can be just the one device that they use for everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something to that, and there are a lot of people who, are, maybe the road warriors, or, people who are on a train for, a couple hours a day as they go back and forth towards work, where that makes a lot of sense. A huge battery, a great big screen, being able to use it for that. There's definitely a market for that. It's just I'm not yet convinced that it's the primary market, if that makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense. And I really want to hear what your thoughts are about the fact of how expensive it is. I'm not saying it's not warranted necessarily. I'm just saying compared to the other priced earlier Nexus devices, what your thoughts are on that. And do you think that they did that because of the whole carrier situation that we have in the U.S.?
I think that there's a couple of things that went into the price of the Nexus 6. The first being support. When you take a look at the Nexus 4 and the Nexus 5, it was not available on any of the other carriers.
Right.
You could pay for it full price and attach it to a couple of carriers, and support for it for either of those devices was kind of middling at best. If you broke your phone and needed to get it replaced, or if there was an issue, and that's something that Google's really stepped up on is being able to offer that support and working through Motorola with these higher end materials to create a better device. I also think it's worth taking a look at the number of radios that are supported in this phone. When it comes to doing business with companies like Qualcomm, these are kind of licensed things, and they end up being very expensive to pay for that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that it's not just one thing attributing to that cost, and I think that it's actually kind of a good thing that the cost of the phone has come up this high, because it means that the phone is psychologically on the same scale as the iPhone and the Galaxy Note 4 and some of these other flagships, and that allows us to kind of be critical of how Google is handling software without the kind of weird modifiers of it's a great phone for the price, or
Sure.
so I think it raises the general caliber to an appropriate place, I think.
Okay. Kevin?
So size being, I mean, I know it's very relevant, but the size of the device aside, how do you feel it does stack up with like the G3, for example, or the Note 4 and some of the other flagships? Yeah, the
I think we've
1+1.
reached a really interesting point when it comes to hardware, where I can look at the 1080p screen on my Moto X and look at the 4K screen the 2K screen on the Nexus 6, and not really feel like I'm missing something by having the 1080p screen. And the same really goes for a lot of the 1080p screens that are out there. The cool thing about technology right now is that all of our displays are awesome.
Right,
What we're really arguing about is measures of awesome. Whether or not something is it is more awesome than the other thing. It's very rare now that I get handed a phone where the screen where I feel like the screen is lacking in a really serious way.
Right.
And I think that that's an interesting position to be in. And really the same thing goes for general processor performance. So I think the biggest things when we're looking at phones right now are things like the camera quality and the battery life, because a lot of the other things that we're dealing with, we're only dealing with there being differences that they're really subtle. The differences between, things like how great the screen quality is or how fast it loads an application. The differences are almost negligible between a lot of these high-end phones now. So I'm waiting to see, in particular, how the battery life and how the camera performs on this, and I really think that that's going to be the biggest differentiator between it and some of the other flagships out there.
Something that's bothering me is, not bothering me, but something that was on my mind is, why go HTC for the tablet Nexus 9, and why go Motorola on the phone?
Google's done that a couple of times with their phones. Working with LG, they've worked with Motorola on tablets before. Google's Nexus program is all about working with their partners.
Okay.
So it makes sense that they would work in multiple degrees for this. And I'm actually really excited about HTC's tablet. HTC hasn't had a tablet in a long time, and one of the big things they said when they ditched the HTC Flyer and HTC Jetstream was that the next time they made a tablet, it was going to be because they were building something truly exceptional. And given what I've seen with the HTC One M8 and the HTC One M7, I'm genuinely looking for it. I've already pre-ordered my personal Nexus 9. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how it stacks up against the other tablets out there, and especially the Nexus 7, because the Nexus 7 was again okay for the price.
Exactly. Yeah. It's babe, we're taking out a second on the house again. In that vein of HTC having this tablet, are you concerned the fact that this has a 64-bit as opposed to a non-64-bit smartphone?
I think that 64-bit applications are not going to be a big deal for a while. I think that Google did the right thing by kind of slowly easing developers into this. It's not, Apple's ecosystem directly encourages people to use 64-bit architecture for some of their app developments, and that will make sense in places like games. That's not going to matter anywhere else. And so what Google's focusing, I guess it could be viewed that Google's maybe a step behind Apple in this, in that what Google's working on right now is optimization with the Android runtime, ART. Making sure that the ahead of time compiler is doing all the things that it is supposed to do, and giving us that 60 frame per second experience, and doing a lot of things. It was Renee Ritchie from iMore said something really interesting a couple of months ago when Android at Google I/O first announced that they were doing 60 frames per second animations, and that's that Apple is just now figuring things out like removable keyboards and a proper notification system and some of these really great things that make iOS kind of cool. But Android is only just now figuring out 60 frames per second fluid animations in their operating system,
Sure.
as an across the platform thing. And so these two companies have forever been approaching the same problem from different perspectives. And I think that this is, instead of focusing on 64-bit applications for Google, this year in particular is going to be about bringing the entire ecosystem up to this very polished, pleasing-looking design to look visually comparable to iOS.
Right, exactly, and the other question that I had, because I know we're kind of on a little bit of time thing, is the Nexus Player. Did that catch you off? I mean, if you were a normal, would that have caught you off guard?
It would have definitely caught me off guard if I was somebody who was paying attention to the leaks all the time, because there really wasn't anything as far as leaks go. But I have the ADT1, which is the developer kit Android TV unit that got handed out at Google I/O.
Right.
Oh, nice.
And so I've been messing with Android TV for a couple of months now, and knew that something was coming at Android 5.0's launch that would address Android TV. So I'm a little different, I think, than people who were kind of chasing leaks and looking for that kind of thing. I didn't know exactly what was coming, but I knew that Android TV was going to be an equal part of that launch.
Now, with the Nexus Player, have you had an opportunity to mess around with the Amazon Fire TV?
I do, yeah. I have an Amazon. I have like all the streaming media boxes. It was kind of an addiction of mine for a little while there.
So what are your thoughts of the similarities between this Nexus Player and the Fire TV, for example? Because whenever I'm sitting there looking at it, I'm like, okay, it's got a little remote, which, I mean, I know Roku and all those have the little remotes and stuff. The similarities, especially even the design, the Fire TV is square, the Nexus Player is round, and there's a lot of, to me, similarities when you look at the specs and everything like that. There's
definitely some similarities there. It can't be argued. Amazon definitely had, in my opinion, the right thought when they came out of the gate. But curiously, the Fire TV really hasn't gone anywhere since it launched. I've tried really hard to give it some love, to keep it entertaining. But really, it doesn't feel any different to me than when it did at launch. And that's something that Google already had a huge hand above the Fire TV with Chromecast support.
Sure.
Adding Chromecast support to a Fire TV is basically what Android TV is. So you get the app support from the Google Play Store, but you also have what is called an Android TV Google Cast. And really, I mean, that's a big deal for me personally. And I think that it kind of mashes all of these ecosystems together. We have wireless streaming thanks to Chromecast. We have video game playing thanks to the controller input, and that like you said, Kevin, the Roku style remote for somebody who just wants something very simple to sit down and watch something on Netflix or Amazon instant video. So I think that's the most interesting thing here. Isn't so much that it looks very much like a competing product, but it's a competing product that is everything all together. And as long as it's not priced insanely, I think that's a very good thing.
Okay, so what do you expect? What would you say a non-insane price for it would be?
I can't imagine this thing being more than $200 without people flipping lids. I mean, it has to be priced comparably to the Fire TV. The Fire TV, if memory serves, is like $100.
Yeah, I think it's on sale for like $85 right now. Last time I looked on Amazon.
I think Google would struggle to get away with more than $130. And still remain competitive in the space, especially with Apple TV and Roku. Price is definitely going to be a huge contributing factor.
Right.
But if you're in the Android ecosystem, man, this all of the news that came out looks pretty solid. I mean, it looks like.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we were saying before. It's user entanglement. This is huge push, and it's not oh well, we're forcing you to do these things. It's with all of these great things, why would you go somewhere else? And that's the same thing that Apple's doing right now, and it's great. But when it comes to the Nexus Player, people have to be convinced to spend more than that $35 for a Chromecast And that's what this is for a lot of people. Is it's
Right.
you know, a higher definition Chromecast with game support. So
And another Chromecast is coming out.
right, yeah.
So it's like, what? You know what I mean? It's just one of those things. Two more quick questions. One, we know you're a big gamer. What is your favorite all-time games and gaming system?
Oh, geez, favorite all-time games and gaming systems. You know, I'm still a huge sucker for Super Mario Brothers 3.
Yeah.
I grabbed a Wii U specifically so that I could install Super Mario Brothers 3 and play, you know, on my TV with my kids. You know, that is, for some reason, that game has always kind of been embedded in my head. As far as modern consoles go, I'm pretty stuck to my Xbox One.
Nice.
I've been playing Destiny a little bit, but I'm very much looking forward to the Halo Master Chief edition coming out here soon. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it.
Nice, nice. And then, what can people expect from you in the future? And tell us a little bit about the Space Monster Anti-Survival Guide. What in God's name is it?
So, like I said before, I can't stand being bored, and we had, you know, the summer for tech journalists is this dry desert of terribleness where we're waiting for things to come out in the fall, and there's all these things going on.
Yeah.
It's just this dry, boring time, and so I have always wanted to try my hand at science fiction writing, and I had told a couple of people about this idea where I wanted to address what happens when you're just a jerk. You know, when you're that guy, you see that guy who takes up 4 parking spaces in, you know, outside of the grocery store.
Is that necessary?
You know, and just all of these behaviors. You know, wouldn't it be fascinating if we had, you know, an army of space aliens that came to Earth and just killed all the assholes?
Nice.
And so that's what the book was. You know, it was this kind of tongue-in-cheek thing where these space monsters came down, and they were attracted to people who did things like, you know, taking up 4 parking spaces when you park, or, you know, just a whole bunch of other really terrible behaviors. There's one who attacked people who take too many selfies. I mean, just, you know, I had a lot of fun with it, and so far the response has been really positive.
So you probably like South Park then. That's awesome. So what can we expect to see from you in the future?
Well, most of what I'm doing right now is kind of trying to figure out the answer to that question. I'm really, you know, I'm trying so many different new things right now, including my work with the guys at Android Central. I'm really trying to figure out, you know, what people want to see when it comes to things like reviews and, you know, kind of not so much change the art form, you know, of kind of tech blogging, but you know, make it something that's you know, more interesting. How can I improve what's already there? Is really what I'm all about right now.
Well, whatever you do, we'll be following you all day long. So, so if the invitation's open for you to come back whenever you want to talk about whatever you want to.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
And Kevin, final thoughts.
Just Russell, is there a way that people can still purchase the Space Monster Anti-Survival Guide aside from? I mean, I know Kickstarter is over, and you probably.
Oh yeah. So digitally, it's on Google Play, Amazon, and iTunes.
Okay.
And there is a physical copy that you can order if you want through lulu.com, lulu.com. Okay. If you just search for Space Monsters. Obviously, I'm like the first person to have used that term to write a book. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, seriously, that's awesome. And I want to see that. All the listeners, if you enjoy him, you enjoy what we're talking about, and you're interested in that idea and doing that, just go buy it, go check it out, hit him up, whatever the case may be, is geek.com, Google plus Russell Holly, exactly how it sounds. And that's with 2 L's in both, so you can't really mess that up. Even me, the guy who needs spell check literally for everything. So go check that stuff out. You can check him out on Twitter as well. We'll be putting that out there on our stuff. And again, Russell, we cannot thank you enough for being on. We know you got to go, so have a great rest of your day, and just thank you for taking out the time. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me. This was a blast.
Thank you.
Awesome. Take care.
Awesome. That was fun, man. He's a fun guy. You know, I've enjoyed.
What awesome stories, right?
Yeah. Yeah. He's really big on Google Plus, and as you see, you know, he was wearing Google Glass, and the thing with, you know, you see that light, so he's probably recording a little bit from time to time, which is fine. I mean, it's cool. That's what Google Glass is all about.
Doesn't bother me.
I know we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but yeah.
We're going to talk about it now, so it's okay. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into the news rundown. Kevin, go ahead and start with your story.
Yeah, I know.
You're in the captain's chair. I don't even have any news stories for this show. So
yeah, it's pretty much just this week it was all about Android and Nexus. So we want to kind of like cover that. I mean, for people that don't know, the Nexus 6. The 6 doesn't mean just it's the 6th version. It's a 6-inch display. So we're familiar with Lumia 1520s, so which are already running 6-inch displays. We each have the Nexus 4. JJ, you've also got the Nexus 5. So we're very versed with Nexus devices,
right?
And love them. I mean, pure Android is such a nice way to go.
It really is a nice way to go. Yeah.
And with Motorola being the maker of this Nexus 6, it's really got my interest peaked because, one, I love these big screen devices, so I love the Note 4s, the Lumia 1520s. If I were to get an iPhone, I would get the 6 Plus because I just love these bigger displays for the reasons we talked about earlier. You can see more. I feel you can do more. And just the fact that with it being Motorola, we know the battery life on it's going to probably be really solid. What size battery? It's a 3220 milliamp hour battery, and you also have turbocharging. So, according to what Motorola's information they've given out, you can get 6 hours of battery life approximately on a 15-minute charge. So, I mean, 15 minutes. That's awesome. So that's really cool. 3 gig of RAM, either 32 or 64 gig of storage. So, contrary to what Apple did with the iPhones, where they still had 16, skipped 32, and went to 64.
So weird.
I think Google and Motorola did the right thing here and just said, you know what, 16, 34? Bye, you're gone. Right. 32 and 64, those are your choices.
Boom. So. And I think that really, again, speaks to my idea of this being a one-stop shop device, right? Like, if you have 32 or 64 gigs, you can put a lot of stuff on there. And yes. If you're traveling, or if this is your primary device, or whatever the case is that they must, obviously they're looking at a lot of analytics and they're saying, you know what, I think this is the best route to go because this can be everything that our customers want it to be.
Right. And
within the constraint of money,
Yeah. And there's going to be a huge customer base because this thing's going to be available on all the major carriers, including even U.S. Cellular, which seems to keep getting smaller and smaller. I used to use them here in St. Louis, and once they left St. Louis and Chicago, I was like, okay. And then it's like they keep selling off other areas. I'm like, how are you guys still in business and still pulling in, these big time phones and having them like right away?
Yeah, and I think that we can talk to a little bit of the fact that this is the right way to go about it. I mean, obviously, we're not happy with the carrier situation here in the U.S., but since we have to live with that, this is the right way to do it. If you're going to do a phone, why not just blast every carrier? Right. It makes it's so frustrating.
Right, because I'm sure you probably saw yesterday what Daniel Rubino over at WP Central mentioned about the 735 and Verizon, where they've got it, they're testing it. It could be ready within the next few weeks for, get ready for the holiday season, but they're not going to start selling it until probably like February of 2015.
And they're going to be like, why didn't this sell very well? Because everybody already bought another device.
You sat on it for 4 months when you had it and could have had it already pushed out.
Yeah, I guess we should be a little easy, though. So one thing that I wanted to look at was this thing. So we're talking about the Nexus 6. This is made by Motorola, not by LG. So LG made the Nexus 5, and the Nexus 4 and the Nexus 5. Yeah. And they did not make the Nexus 6. So the Nexus 6 specs, let's just run through them real quick. 5.9-inch quad HD. What that means is 2560 by 1440 resolution with 493 pixels per inch, 2.7 gigahertz quad core. God, I love quad.
I know you love that term, don't you?
805 CPU, 3 gigabyte RAM, 32 or 64 gigabyte worth of storage, 13 megapixel rear-facing camera, 2 megapixel front-facing camera. They could have bumped that up to 5.
Yeah, don't forget that optical image stabilization on that rear camera.
Yeah, OIS.
Because that separates it from the 2014 Moto X. So
that's true.
It's going to be an improved camera.
Yeah, dual front-facing speakers. Every friggin' phone needs to have front-facing speakers.
Yes. Thank you, HTC, for
doing it. Yeah. Available soon on all carriers. So $649 off contract for the 32 gigabyte version. $699 for the 64 gigabyte version off contract.
Right. Yeah. So we don't really have carrier pricing, on contract pricing yet.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've seen leaks, but we haven't. I haven't seen any official ones.
No, I don't think anything official's come out from AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, etc.
So let's talk a little bit about. We did not. I'm going to kind of skip and throw something in here. We did not talk about deeply Android L.
Right.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Android 5.0 officially called Lollipop, so it's not just Android L anymore.
Every time I say that, it sounds a little funny.
What, Lollipop?
Yeah, Lollipop. I'm not a. It reminds me of that stupid song back when that you get stuck in your head for hours and hours on end, and you were like, no.
What, the Shirley Temple, Good Ship Lollipop thing, or what?
Oh no, I just you know what? I'm not even going to take the time out to think about it because it's not in my head.
Stuck in your head.
Because it will be stuck in my head. Nope. I got these things.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Android L. It's based off Material Design, and last night it was driving me nuts. I couldn't figure out what the new language was for Apple's design language.
Yeah, I can't remember what they called it as well. Like flat design and I know there's a term to it. I'm
gonna look for it right now.
And let us know.
Is it industrial design? No. That doesn't sound right. I'll look it up. But anyway, so they have what's called material design. The material design is made to look kind of like our logo for the show, where it's this paper-esque. It's kind of flat, but not really flat. But it's got a lot of really kind of unique, so to speak, UI looking elements to it. I like it. I think that it's not cartoonish. Like a lot of the earlier Android stuff, all that looked a little cartoonish to me. LG's G3 had what was called the mature colors or the mature design language to it.
Right.
And I think that really does speak to this new Android L. I like it. I think it looks really nice.
Yeah, I like LG's color scheme, and I like what I've seen so far from Android L. I haven't went ahead and tried to push it out onto my Nexus 4 with any of these dev previews. But that's one of the awesome things that Google did with, Android L is the fact that they're making it available for the Nexus 4, the Nexus 5, and also both Nexus 7 tablets, the 2012 and 2013 editions.
Awesome. I'm glad you said that. Now, tell us a little about the cool features of Android L that we learned about.
Well, there's that
battery saver stuff.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, off the top of my head, I can't remember what the name of that battery software, but it's going to help increase battery life. So
if only there was a way to look that up. No.
Yeah, if only there was a way of technology to be able to do that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's going to be able to use a little addition on your battery life. I mean, I don't know if that's really going to help with Nexus 4 because that's one of the big complaints a lot of people have. And I mean, it's a 2-year-old device, so you're using older technology. And just a lot of the animations are different. I mean, I know Google's kind of pushed that out a little bit with the Google Play Store. There's been an update that's been slowly rolling out the last week or so. I had installed it once, and then I'd reset my Nexus 4. But I had a chance to look at it. Just some nice animations, a little different design. I think the Google Plus app has also moved over to this new design with some of the animations. But yeah, I'm just really excited whenever they push those images out for the Nexus devices, the official release, not these dev previews.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to be installing it day one Just boom, right
Yeah,
away.
you
Not
always
even
do
wait.
that. It cracks me up, man.
Not
I
wait.
would like to see a chart of how much time you spend onloading new software and offloading it and doing a full factory reset. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Oh man. Anyway, so let's talk about the Nexus 9. So this kind of caught me a little by surprise. Tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about it, Kevin.
All right, so it's as we mentioned before, it's built by HTC this time around. Instead of Asus, who pretty much handled the Nexus 7 and Nexus 10 devices in the past, HTC getting back into the tablet game, and it's a very nice. Just from the images that I've seen online, it looks really nice. It almost looks slightly iPad style. It's a 4.3 aspect ratio, versus like a 16:9 or something like that. And that's one thing that Jerry Hildenbrand was talking about on Android Central's podcast yesterday, that when he watches something on his tablet, he doesn't want the bars on top. He wants a widescreen experience. So, but he's looking forward to this 9. It's an
I am
8.9
too.
inch display, 2048 by 1536 resolution, the 4.3 aspect ratio just mentioned, a 2.3 gigahertz NVIDIA Tegra K1 64-bit dual-core CPU, and it's also available in an LTE
Boo. Dual
version.
core. Boo. Dual core. Boo.
So an LTE-enabled version, which is, I mean, that's going to be nice for
Yep.
people on the go. 2 gig of RAM, 16 or 32 gig storage options, and the LTE version is 32 gig only. An 8 megapixel rear facing camera and a 1.6 megapixel front camera. Now here's my thing about cameras on tablets. I'm not so sure. I really wish
Bring it in.
tablet makers would invest more into their front facing camera.
Right.
That is what most people use. And I'm sorry, but if you're taking an iPad or taking a tablet to an
You
event,
don't have to apologize to these people.
and that's how you're recording your kids' soccer games and stuff like that, or just if you're at a concert, or I mean, I was at a concert over the summer, and this woman in front of me was standing there with an iPad taking pictures. I'm like, oh my gosh, why? And they were terrible pictures because oh, just stop putting the money into a rear camera and just put it into the front-facing camera. Do what like HTC. Gosh, here we are talking HTC. They're doing these RE rephones where they have these huge spec front-facing cameras.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is what they should have done with this Nexus 9.
Agreed. Totally agree.
That would have made the most sense, and that would have had everybody going, I want a Nexus 9.
Yeah, but then in 6 months they couldn't come out with the new Nexus 9 with the 13 front and back. Yeah.
The
So
Nexus
I mean,
9.2.
yeah. So it's first world problems, baby.
And it also has the dual front-facing boom sound speakers. That
we like that. We
Good
do
job,
come.
good job. 6,700 milliamp hour battery.
That's not bad.
I'm curious to see how that battery life's going to be.
I saw this thing. I want to say it was on Twitter, where somebody said like it's the equivalent. The internals of the Nexus 9 are the equivalent of the 2012 MacBook.
Yeah, I mean, that wouldn't be bad. I mean,
I was just like,
pretty good battery life.
That's pretty solid. But I mean the speeds and all that kind of thing. So that is the Nexus 6 and the Nexus 9 and Android L. So we've talked about those things.
So real quick, pricing on the Nexus 9 starts at $399. So you can pre-order it now right on Amazon. I think you can pre-order it on Amazon before you can pre-order it on Google Play.
I want to talk about the Nexus Player because I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about it. I mean, I know that the stats are out there. I didn't put them in our show notes for this because I didn't know if we'd be able to hit that on time because of time crunch and stuff like that. But just looking at it, and like we discussed with Russell, it just looks so much like the Fire TV, which I think the Fire TV is a great little device. I mean, you got your Netflix, you got your Amazon Prime Video, and you can play games on it, and just there's all kinds of things you can do. One downside that I've found so far is that if you're wanting to install games like Dead Trigger or some of these other bigger games, you have to uninstall other stuff to install these because it only has like 8 gig of internal storage on it, so you can't install a whole bunch of stuff on it. And I think the specs on this Nexus Player are very similar, like an 8 gig storage and stuff like that.
Yeah, so we got 8 gigabytes of storage. We got a 1.8 gigahertz quad core Intel Atom. Yeah, I know. It's like,
somebody happy.
What? Me, this guy. It makes this guy happy.
Yes.
In the box, you get the Nexus Player remote. You get the Nexus Player. It comes with batteries. Batteries included instead of that crap. The batteries not included. It does require a TV with an HDMI input and HDMI cable for internet connectivity, Wi-Fi only. It is a round deal, so it's almost like a little plate, and it will be available today. Starting pre-order starting today. It comes on board with Netflix, TuneIn, which is a radio station type thing, Crackle. You can watch movies. I still don't understand how that's legal, but whatever. I enjoy it. Food Network, Drama Fever. That doesn't sound like what I'm into. Games, Google Play, Vivo, PBS Kids, Hulu Plus, Pandora, of course, Google Play Music, music and movie and TVs. Red Bull TV. I've never watched that. I need to watch that. Songza. The Huffington Post, that's kind of Plex. UV Dios, man, that shows the Y to me. I'm fairly certain that's a Spanish thing. And then TED, which is always cool. I really enjoy watching that. Daily Motion, YouTube, Plex, Bloomberg, Travel Channel, and iHeartRadio, and Music's Match. Also, there's an the most trusted news sources. Yeah, right. Everybody says they're most trusted news sources. And let's not forget that there's an Asus. Now, this is Asus, right? So this is them working with their partners. Asus has a gaming controller where you have tiny, digital 3D graphics and all that kind of thing. Free online multiplayer. You can sync your achievements across your Android phone, tablet, and TV. So we were talking earlier about the ecosystem. Well, this is the ecosystem. Right. You have an Android device or phone. You're connected to the Google Play Store, which means you got your music, you got your TVs, you got your content, you got all that stuff. Then you got your Google TV here on your TV, your big TV, so you can share your screen from your device. So you got your tablet, you've got your TV, you got your Chromebook, you got your that is the ecosystem that we're in here. So that's pretty cool. Let me see if there was any other things that really popped out to me.
One thing that I think is standing out to a lot of people is the fact that the Fire TV has an Ethernet port.
Ethernet.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
Versus this Nexus Player doesn't have that. I mean, maybe it's a big deal, maybe it's not, but it's a connectivity issue for some people. They don't want to rely on their wireless streaming, and they run hardwire. I would say in order to keep it sleek looking like how they've done it. Plus, I get that. No, I get that. Also, we want to make sure that everybody knows it's got an HDMI out. It's only 1920 by 1080 right now at 60 hertz. So if that tells you guys anything. So we just wanted to pretty much most people.
Yeah, so, for sure.
No 4K.
So for like Marquise Brownlee, the high definition stuff, he's probably not too happy with that. No, I'm not going to speak for him. I'm just kidding. It's in his name, and it's the first person that popped in my head because we were talking about him last night. And the Nexus Player. So really interesting stuff. I think if I was to go all in on Google, I would probably go all in with the Nexus 6, the Nexus 9 for my tablet, the Nexus Player for my TV stuff, and obviously a Chromebook of some kind with the option coming down the pipe with Android L and the 64-bit integration with running faster on a Chromebook and stuff like that. So I mean, you wouldn't even need a PC at all at that point.
Yeah, I think with the Nexus 6 being available on carriers and us having some connections with Verizon and AT&T, I think we get a review. Try to get a review unit of the Nexus 6 because I'm thinking that might be my next Android purchase. I've been jonesing for a while to get a nicer Android device. My Nexus 4 is getting a little long in the tooth, but it's still working well. But it's still a very, very small screen. So
Yeah, it's especially when we were rocking 6-inch screens, and then when you drop down to it's like, oh my gosh, this is a little baby. It's a little baby.
Right. It's a
So
big phone.
yeah, that's one of those things. I don't know. The Nexus 5 for me is perfect right now, and I think it'll be fine. I think people that want to get right now a Nexus 5, you're not going to be unhappy. You'll be unhappy with the battery life because it's atrocious. But as far as the device itself, it's going to be supported with Android L, the next version of the operating system, and like Russell said, there's going to be a market maturity that is going to need to happen with these apps anyways. So the whole 64-bit thing, I don't know. That's why I'm not gonna. That's why I wouldn't hop on for a Nexus 6 right now. Definitely the Nexus 9. That's a hot tablet for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as a phone, nah. The next one I would get for any device, for that matter, would be octa-core or quad-core, and it would be 64-bit. I'm not messing around anymore.
I'm really curious what Android's going to call, or Google's going to call the next Nexus phone, because Nexus 7, well, that's a tablet.
Right.
And I don't really think the world is ready for a 7-inch phone. But then again, there's those Huawei devices, so.
Oh man, those things are ginormous.
Yeah, so I mean, they're out there. Man, you were really going after a very small market with those, I think.
And let's remember too, if you buy this device off contract, the Nexus 9, I believe, I think the Nexus 9. I'll maybe clarify this later, but definitely the Nexus 6. There's a SIM card tray, so you potentially put it on some of these other smaller carriers.
Yeah, I'm sure you can get it unlocked and take it over to Cricket or
wherever.
Maybe even
Metro
Virgin
PCS,
Mobile, I
something
don't
like
know.
that. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, Kevin, we're into the application picks. You're up first, sir.
Yeah, this came out a couple days ago. We've talked about it on our couple of our other shows about Angry Birds. We're both fans of Transformers. We went and have seen all of the other ones in theaters and stuff, and grew up with Transformers. And I finally got a chance to play Angry Birds Transformers. It came out this week on iOS devices, so you iPhone users and iPad users, go ahead and download it. It's free. There's in-app purchases, of course, which pretty much that's the way the market's going, and I like that. You get so much free, and if you want to really get in depth, you can start paying for things. But it's fun. I definitely recommend giving it a whirl if you like Angry Birds and Transformers. It's kind of like a match made in heaven. Gameplay style is a lot different than traditional Angry Birds. There's no slingshots, so you ain't got to worry about that. It's nice running and shooting and transforming, and it's pretty cool.
That is cool. I'm looking forward to where it comes out to other platforms.
Hopefully it'll be out on Android, I think within the next week or two. I don't think it's too much longer.
Awesome. What's the holdup, Angry Birds?
I don't know.
Push Up Social for Android and iOS, and I'm going to be having the beta finally after 3 p.m. today. But Push Up Social, if you go to stltechtalk.com and you go to the bottom of the screen, or it pops up at the very bottom of the screen, it's a social media interaction with the site, and you can take that experience onto your mobile device as well. So please sign up for this thing, man. It's awesome. Push Up Social for Android and iOS. That is something that I'm going to be talking about until you download this thing.
Right. Because if you've got a website and you're looking to build a better community for people that visit your website, that's who you want to get. It's very non-intrusive. I mean, it just sits there at the bottom. It's really, really awesome. A person just clicks on a boop, then it slides up, pushes up, hence Push Up Social. So,
nice. It's
awesome.
Great. It's really great. And Dan, we're a huge fan of the people who've made it. We've shaken their hands. We've talked to them. We've said, hey, we know these people, man. They're cool. Support them. Also, my other application pick, because Kevin said that was his other application pick for another show. So NFL Game Rewind for Windows Phone, iOS, and Android. Free app, but you have to pay for the service on the back end. There are 3 different pricing tiers. You can go to the NFLGameRewind.com or NFL.com for more information on that. But I love it. I'm a huge NFL fan. I like watching all the games. It's great because you can watch them in super fast mode without any commercials and without any time in between plays, or you can watch it commercial free, the entire game, as broadcast version, just without the commercials. So it's really cool, and game breaks and all that kind of stuff. So go check those two things out. Huge fan of those of that application and of the pricing stuff. It's hot, man. It's where it's at. So I like it a lot. So, if you want to comment or contribute, you, the listener, to any of the stories that we've covered on the show, email us, contact@thetechinformist.com. We want to thank again our guest, Russell Holly. That was a phenomenal episode, man.
It was.
I mean, I had a lot of fun.
Great
interview. He was just a really great guy. So I'm looking forward to listening back to this one for sure. So from our entire crew, consider yourself informed. We're out.